Hello everyone, my name is Gobachescu and today we will do something very different from what I usually do, which is playing video games, not doing some gameplays for you guys. But as a Resident Evil enjoyer, also a God of War enjoyer, I would want to react to one of the video that is constantly recommended on my YouTube. I don't read it because I do Resident Evil 6 content nowadays because I would want to revisit Mercenary Mode, and I will upload some of the mercenary content for you guys on YouTube um, to show you how bad the consensus of reviewers are still on Resident Evil 6, despite the game is one of the games that's still alive today and sold quite well. As you can see on the video game sales, of course, Capcom never updates their sales constantly. Only on financial updates or quarterly reports of the company, they will release the total sales. They will never release a constant, like very specific sales like this on the wiki, but the wiki tracks it quite well. And I believe most of the sales are quite dated with the Capcom financial reports. And as you can see on this chart, is that Resident Evil 6 is still the top two, not counting the old versions of RE4 and RE2. Those are counting remakes and originals and other platforms consistent into one. And we already know that Resident Evil 4 has been constant release on like even the shittiest iPhone that you play when you are a small boy. You can still play that game original on that type of platform. That's how gigantic it was. So we will not go in directly into details with all version, but if we're going for like specific titles only, RE6 still doing very well. You cannot deny that RE6 is not doing well. Uh, we can also go directly to the Resident Twitch TV Resident 6. You can see you can still have people streaming it, despite the fact that right now I'm streaming when the Asian players are still not active and the US players are quite in the morning, so they will not touch these type of games. But you can see that this chart of Resident 6 is still very good on Twitch. And if we go into a more detailed explanation, we can see on Steam VP the game is still favorably favored, despite the fact that the percentage is not high, but it's still favorably favored. Um, and the in-game chart is still quite good. How the hell is the game doing this, doing bad, still have players? Can you explain, reviewers, by statistic, why does this game still have players? When you start telling me that Resident Evil 6 is really that bad, no, it's worse. No, you are lying, SOB. This is not true by even the smallest statistic on sales, on player counts, on streaming counts. So you should very carefully explain to me as a player with a lot of player hours on Steam. As you can see, I have nearly 1,500 hours of this game. So I know this game quite well. So you better explain to me why this game doesn't do well. I, and I already know a lot of the jankiness of Resident Evil 6. That's why I don't. Some part of the game I dislike because it's kind of like a 2013 trend with some sort. But I will explain it in detail later on. Now we're going to change review video, and as you can see, the statistic is basically well, it's a normal trend for Resident Evil 6 fans to like a video that say Resident Evil 6 is really that bad. It's kind of like a normal trend, but most of the players that like this game never touch this game more than 150 hours. Trust me. They don't even touch the mercenary mode. They don't even touch the no mercy mode. They don't even touch the agent hunt mode, which is the very first thing that you will see when you start in the game. So yeah, and if you scroll down, you will see a lot of players, or like the commenters, start to say that negative things about the video being really bad. Example is that characters for Left 4 Dead 2 game were added to mercenary mode. Does this guy know this fact? No, that he doesn't. He doesn't even touch this game more than 20 hours, I would say. He never touched the mercenary mode. So I would agree this guy doesn't know crap shit to talk about this game. Second is that enemy variety is lacking in RE6. This is the best comment I have ever seen. Let me show you one example. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the classic normal enemy that you will face as Jake and Sherry, Ada, and Chris campaign. These guys are controllable. They are like zombies with guns. If he say that the enemy variety is so small, when you scroll down, you already see like nearly 10 types of variety, not counting crystallines, which is having 10 more types of variety of enemy that will spawn from these crystallines. So jumping in and saying that this game doesn't have variety enemy is so stupid that I would like doesn't want to touch all the videos. We would say we were just gonna watch about 5 minutes to see if he's saying other stuff is like true to the core of the Resident 6, or he just like blatantly like not the already dislike the game. But remember, we have players that already hear about the game, dislike it immediately because some dickhead tell them that they dislike something. That's called bias reviews. And when they jump in, they don't even want to enjoy the game despite that quote positive review. One thing is that they will never touch any game modes because they already jump in with a biased review of that saying this game is bad. I don't want to waste my time on this game. I just want to make a quick buck video to show everyone that I am a lying SOP. That's what reviewer does. Most reviewers doesn't touch this game more than 200 hours, and I know one fact that a lot of reviewers even like the Last of Us Part 1 or 2 players when they review, they don't even touch this game more than 200 hours. So pretty much, you have to trust the players that has a lot of player counts doing speedrun or explore a lot of content so that 100% of the game. They will know the core business of what makes the game good and bad. Now let's go. Not wasting any time. Jump into this video, and we're gonna watch 5 minutes only because I'm not gonna watch the entire rant of this guy.
Resident Evil 6.
One thing is that he doesn't even cut the Resident 6 intro short enough, showing that he's like having some sort of bias thing going on. You dislike the game, why the hell would you keep this intro so long?
In RE6, you don't have one campaign or even two, but instead 4. The first stars Leon Kennedy and new character Agent Hol.
Technically, you have 7. You can play one campaign, but 2 different perspectives. You can do new game 7 times. You should mention that.
Helena Harbor. They're in the middle of a citywide outbreak of the C virus. Leon Kennedy and new
Everyone
character
see one issue immediately. Look at this guy
Agent Helena Harbor.
going offline. My dude doesn't explore this game. My dude doesn't even explore this game mode. I can tell you that. Look at this. You already see how this guy turning go offline mode is really a big issue of his review. The fact that it's also one of the things that most of these type of reviewers they will never go online. Trust me, they will never put partner trolls on allow and experience the random players encounters, or even turn on Agent Hunt 7. Trust me, I already know the fact that these guys are already hacking the bullshit up.
They're in the middle of a citywide outbreak of the C virus, and Helena knows that the National Security Advisor Derek Simmons is responsible and leads Leon to the secret lab for proof, as they are then blamed for it and travel to China to find, expose, and defeat Simmons. Chris Redfield is joined.
He already cuts most freaking like half of the story. Simmons planned this ahead because the president is trying to expose the previous T virus outbreak from Raccoon cities. That is a threat to his family. Hence why he uses Helena by like experimenting on her sister to push her into leaving the position that she got in the president, leaving him vulnerable to the zombie outbreak of C virus, and he's got infected. He has to be killed. You can say that within like 30 seconds, and the video already makes sense for Leon campaign at the start, and then um, he starts to frame Leon campaign that is like way later in the story, and Leon Henle chase him down to like expose him back. It's kind of like a classic Resident Evil style of storytelling. So like the fact that you never go like cut half of the story, Leon, is already like cringe me how bad you are on doing these videos.
by Piers Nivens, one of Chris's BSAA comrades. Their unit was wiped out by being exposed to the virus, and Chris became a drunk afterward. Being found by Piers and brought back into the fight to find and stop the woman responsible, Ada Wong. Sherry Birkin, now
And he could have said that because the Ada Wong in Blue, she started to be like tricking Chris into escorting her, and in turn she's killing one of his comrades, leading him to have a PTSD. That's why Pierce has to get him back to into the action so they can go and solve the outbreak in China. And then within this Chris story, they go into the adventure, and Chris start to see how important he was to his journey. You can say simple thing like that to recap the entire campaign, just like what you did with Leon, but of course you cut half that crap off. That's why this one you only explain the intro and not the later half of the overall Chris campaign. What does it do? Like I said, yes.
a government agent is tasked with locating Jake Mueller, who has antibodies for the C virus in the hopes of using that to produce a vaccine. And lastly, there's Ada Wong's
Yeah, and then he doesn't even explain that Jake and Sherry is being chased by a beta Resident Evil 3 remake nemesis.
campaign where she has to get to the bottom of the ongoing conspiracy. These four campaigns are all
Like, what does that mean? Ada wasn't supposed to know what's going on, but then a Siemens call, and she was intrigued. Well, what is this new type of outbreak was? So she was voluntarily do this herself to find out what is the core of this virus was. What is this type of conspiracy going on to create this virus? etc. 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 And you can explain that in detail without saying much like that, because Ada wasn't supposed to know. Should know that within the first 10 seconds of the intro. So
happening at the same time, and the characters will
no, it doesn't happen at the same time. You know that Chris and Kiss campaign and Jackson Sherry campaign was happening way before 6 months before Leon campaign was happening, and Ada campaign was intersected between 3 months before Leon campaign and happening directly at the same time as Leon during the Tolls outbreak. Of course, after that Tolls outbreak, Chase and Sherry and Chris and Kiss had to meet together in China. So no, it doesn't happen at the same time. But he drew that spreads can possible, but he never mentioned the fact that it's a costume, like I showed before.
occasionally cross paths or come into conflict. But the gameplay between the four stories is exactly the same, so that basic knowledge is all you really need to know to get into Resident Evil 6. I had a lot of issues with this game from the moment it started. Like this kind of slow prologue where Leon has to drag Helena to safety, followed by some explosions and chase scenes. But then, once I was actually in the Leon story properly, the first chapter was quite the learning curve. The game is all about the action, but things are pretty different from RE4 and even RE5.
I mean, why the hell did you choose Leon campaign in the first place? Leon campaign first chapter was basically like a horror experience emulated, or like attempt to emulate by Capcom, because I already played like Leon chapter 1 and I feel bored at the horror attempt that they trying to make. But because they want to recreate a similar RE2 experience, but in RE6 context for the players. The prologue of that was basically showcasing you how the button works in Resident 6. That's quite normal. That's what most of the prologue does, but the prologue was choosing the wrong stuff to show. And they show a lot of cutscenes that it's way too long and players doesn't want to like you cannot skip cutscene in that prologue intro that never occur back in the main story. You can mention that and people would agree. Prologue was so long because you cannot skip cutscenes. Once you can skip cutscene, that thing is just like basic button tutorial. Most games back then show you how to do that. Even Prototype 2, James Taylor first part is basically him punching zombies. That's pretty much normal for a game. So
First thing I had to grapple with was how the camera is really zoomed in. I did get used.
let me show you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Resident 6. And if you go into option, you go into camera and you scroll down, what the hell is this? The camera zooms in because your field of view was defaulted by 0. If you zoom out like this, if you switch like this, it's gonna be code 15. If you explore the settings option like everyone else within like first 5 minutes of the game, because we don't want to like setting the game to F for our experience, you will see this. So the only critical side things I can tell you about this game is that you have to switch this from the main menu because there's no option. You can switch the field of view within the game. So that is one biggest disadvantage I have to particularly for 6.4 that you cannot switch the field of view in game. But as you can see, the camera doesn't even close when you zoom out to 15 like this. And the guy doesn't even explore the setting and mention everyone that this exists. What the hell is this? Huh? Jay?
Used to it after the first play session, but when I started, I just felt like the camera was too close, and I made the combat of the early game pretty difficult because zombies were all around me, and a lot of the time I couldn't see them coming, or I'd be hit by a train or an ambulance I tried to avoid and wasn't able to.
The fact that the guy doesn't even dodge to the right when that happens, congratulations, you just played yourself. Of course, I cannot say that you dodge to the right will survive, but I would say that is one attempt I can agree that you know exactly how dodging works. And your attempt of dodging is correct, leading to the fact that you at least attempt to survive. No, this guy walk backwards and get hit by the ambulance and then complains about it. Who's skill issue? It's doing it again. It's doing it again. Oh yeah, this one I can agree, but like he's like waiting for like 2 seconds to react to something, and then he rush like this. He doesn't even tend to dodge, and then team issue poo hoo for
You do get used to it, but most of my deaths in RE6 came from Leon Chapter 1, where you need to get through the infected city. I was getting
skill issues. Leon Chapter 1 is easy. Trust me. I had speedrun Chris No Hope at strength, and his first chapter is 10 times more difficult than Leon. Saying this doesn't prove your point of the game being bad.
grabbed by enemies I couldn't see and got overwhelmed by the
That's the issue. He keeps spamming the freaking melee and he doesn't move the camera backwards to watch where the zombie is. Where's your awareness, environmental awareness, Jay? When you play a game, do you have that type of awareness, basic awareness to move the camera around? No? Do you skill issue?
sheer volume of combat that's dumped into the first level. I actually didn't die that many times from then on, especially in the other campaigns when I got to grips with the gameplay. But there are still issues to deal with, like you don't really get much health in this.
My god. See what I told you about his dodging skill? He doesn't even attempt to press A to dodge. Go and move the left stick with A to roll back, to roll left, roll right to avoid that path.
In this game. Your character will have a few blocks of health and it runs out pretty fast. When you run out, you either need to wait for your partner to rescue you or wait out this bar on the bottom to get back into the action. Combine that.
Why the hell did he use one of the single player skill that lets AI to heal you with tablets? Jay, do you explore the skill settings? No?
Feeling of not having much health with how often I was getting thrashed in the first Leon level, and I was.
You don't even attempt to dodge or press left stick and right stick. I'm sorry, left trigger and right trigger at the same time to do quick shots. You don't even attempt to defend yourself. And you're saying the game is bad. Hey, let's I don't want to watch this 20 minutes of this crap. Because I only know the rest of it is he's complaining about bullshit things that he could have learned had he stick around and play random online or having a friend to play with. No, he switched straight to offline mode, and that is one of the worst things you can do at a co-op game. Some mode you can learn better. With games mechanic, if someone shows you how. No, this guy is like to play.
Given a poor first impression of this game. But to its credit,
of course, you can still play offline, as I have watched many Pop Soup videos. He plays offline quite well, and he doesn't even play this game often. But that's the thing; he actually learns how to play through chat, and he actually explored the combat of this game. So, kudos to him. Not kudos to this guy.
Once you get a flow going, I think these combat mechanics are pretty satisfying at their best.
You say it's satisfying at the best, yet you do even do a melee attack. So far, in the video.
Whatever character you play as will have access to a bunch of weapons, and you'll have a ton of options for engaging with enemies. Melee.
That's every game. Not just RE6, Resident 4. We have option right at chapter 3 to buy so much type of weapon, pistols, SMG, shotgun, sniper, 4 type of weapons to do whatever you want within those first chapters of the games to do the combat. That's every game, dude. Not just Resident Evil 6.
Melee attacks used to be context sensitive, but in RE6 you can just attack any enemy with punches or kicks by pressing a button, and doing that will allow you to do cool combo attacks like a roundhouse.
That's existing in Revelation 2 as well. In some sort, they use the knife. And they can open melee attack with the same thing. Same with Resident Evil 5, you can use the knife. The fact that you cannot move is an issue, but there's still an option to do that. In RE6, I would agree that you can freely melee with kicks. That's the new thing only. You don't explain how the combat is satisfying by having this mechanic only.
Kick is Leon or a backhand is Chris that clears enemies. Your ability to do melee attacks depends on the stamina gauge below your health bar. If it runs out, your character of choice will move slower and not be able to defend themselves as well. So you don't want to
No, you can still stay defending yourself, you just don't know how to dodge.
Overuse melee attacks either. But your options don't stop there. You can quick fire gun attacks to stun enemies and leave them open
Now we mention it.
for melee attacks, and you have more mobility while shooting than ever before. Not only can you now move while aiming, you can also dive out of the way of any attack by rolling forward, diving back, sideways, or sliding into enemies, or rolling out of the way of attacks while shooting from the ground. Besides the Phantom Pain, I haven't played many games that handle shooting like this, and I think
I watched this gameplay and I don't want to continue. Trust me. We'll still have 2 minutes left to go. Trust me. We still have 2 minutes of pain to go.
it can be a lot of fun to work with at times. I say at times.
What the fuck is he doing? He can slide directly into the zombie and you slide away from the to the level of the zombie as a dodge, despite that there's no zombie hitting you. What the hell is this, man?
Times for multiple reasons. The first of these reasons is that the enemy variety is pretty.
He doesn't even attempt to dodge. This is like, what is it? The 7 clips I see him not doing the dodge? Dude, what the fuck?
Lacking in RE6. Leon's story brings zombies back into the RE series, and I thought these were the most fun enemies to fight as they're more mobile than the classic RE zombies and could even use weapons, but were still fun to fight with your various tools like combining guns with melee attacks. But once I started Chris's story, I was introduced to the Juavo enemies, which are combatants enhanced by the C virus. As Chris, Jake, and Ada, these guys make up an overwhelming majority of the enemies you'll face off against in Resident Evil 6. But the issue is I don't feel like they were fun to fight as they mostly blasted at you with guns from a distance. So
Sure, have you forget Resident Evil 4 had those type of enemies and they just as annoying?
many encounters in RE6 have become war of attrition shootouts. Games have
That's the thing. You have to use the dodging mechanic and go into covers when against these type of guys. Even though there's a table, you can roll right into it and then hold aim to take covers from the fire, and then you can blast them once they stop shooting. That's even like the Last of Us mechanics. We start at 3 minutes, right? We still have one more minute.
made systems like that work just fine. With the kind of awkward cover shooting mechanics and a campaign this long, it just gets old after a while.
No, it doesn't. I don't feel old. It's like a standard mechanics that most games would have if you have enemy with freaking guns.
To get behind cover, you need to hold the aim button and then be near cover. It's a very odd system.
They say, hey, yeah. Now he knows how to cover. You don't know how to roll into cover? Really?
At least coming from someone who's played a lot of Uncharted, but I can talk about those games
He played Uncharted. He didn't play Uncharted 4. Trust me.
again later. Like I said, room after room after room after room of fighting the same kinds of enemies and monsters just gets really tiring, which is the
And this guy saying enemy mortality is really lacking in RE6 proves the point that this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
biggest issue I have with RE6.
Yeah.
In the previous video, I didn't realize how important it was that I went over the 4 key pillars of RE game design, but I'm glad I did because I can use that to further explain why I think RE6 fails. I've gone on record to say that I don't think
RE6 failed. Ladies and gentlemen, we got it. Congratulations, you just fooled yourself. It makes $730 million. This type of game cannot be remakes because these type of games usually sell well when it's on sales. That's quite normal. For about 10, you can buy it for like $9.99 when it's on sale, and the full price is only about $20 at best. It's not full $60, hence why you don't watch the growth. Those type of games released way back then when the game price is cheap. The remakes released in nowadays highways, the game price is so expensive that I remember buying Resident Evil 4 for like $79.99. Yeah. That's normal. You don't watch the growth here, you watch the sales. It's doing very well. So you say it's failed? It's failed because of the first year, it didn't make much sales. But it's a long-term success for Capcom. So, to the point,
franchises need to play with the exact same gameplay and structure for all eternity to still be valid entries in that series.
And the fact that he's showing God of War against Resident Evil is a joke. Trust me. I wish he uses his Uncharted freaking clips or The Last of Us Part 1 or Part 2 clips. That would make more sense.
To recap, I think RE is not about fixed cameras and slower paced combat. I think Resident Evil is about resource management, tension, exploration, and replayability.
It's also about the story, the heightened horror experience by the environment, and also the heightened story impact from the characters themselves. You're missing all that. You don't even watch how the characters grow in Resident Evil in general. That's what I can tell from your bullshit story summary earlier.
Something like Resident Evil 1 will have resource management come from the game's finite supply of ammo and ink ribbons. Players are required to think about their supplies and how best to use your last possible fighting rise need for ammo alongside Shevas, keeping your inventory at the top of your mind at all times. Tension, you explain.
No, Here's the issue with Resident 5. You have so many weapons on your own freaking slot already. And you're complaining? Nah, I don't think so. Anyway, we reached to the end of this video. I already watched 5 minutes of his bullshit videos. I can tell you that most of the videos, they don't even go in depth on how Resident Evil 6 is a very good game in terms of like a combat exploration. This guy doesn't even do the dodging. That's one thing I noticed throughout his entire 5 minutes here. And he's complaining about his dying so much. Scary issue, my dude, scary issue. I will say Resident Evil 6 has a very big issue with the story pacing, the story design, and the action combat. The action sequences in general, it's been like over the top macro based themes. But other than that, it's a very fun, dumb game to play. And you should play. For once, for the means. For two, to at least not watching these type of dude lying constantly onto the fan base and being a joke of themselves, not being able to dodge. Journalism difficulty at its best. Thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.